Hi guys, this is a video by Darklink Does Math. The content in this video is geared towards 6th grade math standards. These videos are public so that my students may access this information easily, as well as anyone else looking for math help. I hope you find this video helpful. If you do not, I hope you can find what you are looking for elsewhere. There's a lot of information out there. Be aware that I am not perfect, so there may be the occasional mistake. I apologize in advance if this should happen. So today, we are going to be going over lesson 2.3, absolute values, and what they mean, and how to solve them. So our first term, and only term, is absolute value. Absolute value is the distance of a number from 0. Now, what would an absolute value problem look like? Well, you might see something like this with like a number, and it's got 2 bars on either side, or you might see something with maybe a negative number inside with bars on those surrounding the number. These bars right here are your absolute value bars, or your absolute value symbols. So this problem right here says absolute value of 5. This right here would say absolute value of -5. So anytime you see those bars surrounding your number, that's absolute value. And it's basically asking, what is the distance of that number from 0? So we're going to draw a number line just to help us visualize this. We're going to go from -5 all the way up to +5. Okay, let's actually solve both of those problems. So our first one, absolute value of 5. Again, we're asking what is the distance of that number from 0? So if I find 5 on my number line, which is right there, and I count how far is it from 0, well, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away. So the absolute value of 5, or how far is it from 0? Well, it's 5 away. Our next problem, absolute value of -5. We're basically asking, how far is -5 from 0? So -5 on a number line is the smallest number up here on the number line. How far is it from 0? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away. Also, from the opposite side. So notice, absolute value of +5, absolute value of -5, the answers are both 5, because distance is always positive. You can't travel a negative distance. Distance is always positive. So what does this mean? Well, if distance is always positive and absolute value is how far you are away from 0, in other words, distance, then that means absolute value of a number is always positive. The absolute value of a number is always going to be positive. Okay, let's do a few practice problems. We're going to use this number line just for a nice visual. So our first one is absolute value of -9. -9 is right here on this number line, and we're asking how far is -9 from 0? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 away. Again, distance is always positive. It doesn't matter which direction you're traveling from. So if you have an absolute value of a negative number, your distance is going to come out positive, no matter what. Absolute value of 7. How far is 7 from 0? 7's right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 away. Absolute value of negative 4. How far is it from 0? 1, 2, 3, 4. Absolute value of 2. 2 is 1, 2 away from 0. So you'll notice that essentially, when you're finding absolute value of a number, all you have to do is rewrite the number. It's going to be that far away, but be sure that that number is always positive because distance is always positive and not negative. Also, one thing to keep note of, do not confuse absolute value with opposites. If I was finding the opposite of 7, my answer would be negative 7. If I was finding the opposite of negative 9, it would be positive 9. But absolute value and opposites are often confused. So we just want to remind ourselves that absolute value or absolute values are not opposites. That's not what you're doing. You're not finding the opposite of numbers. You are finding how far is it from 0, and that distance is always going to be positive. Okay, next. We're going to complete each inequality using greater than or less than, and we're going to be sure to show our reasoning, work. So, first one, I have absolute value of negative 20 and absolute value of negative 40, and I want to compare those using less than or greater than. It's important to note that this problem is not the same as comparing negative 20 and negative 40. If I were to compare negative 20 and negative 40 and say which one is bigger or smaller, well, negative 20 would be much larger than negative 40 because negative 20 is farther right on a number line, whereas negative 40 would be way farther to the left, way more below 0 than negative 20 is. Now with absolute value of negative 20 and negative 40, what am I really comparing? I'm comparing their distances from 0. So we're saying, is negative 20 have a bigger or smaller distance from 0 than negative 40? Well, to do that, our work is going to be to calculate their distance from 0 first. So absolute value of negative 20, how far is it from 0? 20 away. Absolute value of negative 40, how far is it away from 0? 40 away. Now, which one is larger, 20 or 40? Well, 40 is. So we're going to say, I should have written it up there. We're going to say absolute value of negative 20 is less than absolute value of negative 40. In other words, we're saying negative 40 has a much larger distance from 0 than negative 20 does. Now, what use would this be? Or where might you find this example in real life? Let's say you're talking about football and how many yards a football team is losing. So let's say one team loses 20 yards. So a loss of 20 yards. And the other team has a loss of 40 yards. Which one lost more, basically? Well, the one that lost 40 yards lost more. So that would be the context for this type of problem. So we're not comparing the actual numbers. We're comparing their distances from 0. So notice, if I were comparing the actual numbers, I'd have a complete different answer. You're comparing their distance from 0. All right, our next one. Absolute value of 1,000 and absolute value of negative 1,001. Which one has a greater distance from 0? So first, let's show our work. Absolute value of 1,000. How far is it away from 0? 1,000 away. Absolute value of negative 1,001. How far is it away from 0? 1,001. Which one is larger? 1,001. That means absolute value of 1,000. It has a smaller distance from 0 than absolute value of negative 1,001. This is one farther away from 0 than this one is. Okay, last example. Absolute value of 3 and absolute value of negative 10. Which one is farther away from 0? Well, absolute value of 3 is 3. It's 3 away from 0. Absolute value of negative 10. It's 10 away from 0. Which one's larger? 10. So absolute value of 3 is less than or has a smaller distance from 0 than negative 10. Okay, another use for absolute values. Bank accounts, or money. So in this figure, it shows a section from Carter's bank account statement. We see all these different words: deposit, withdrawal, balance. Let's go over those first. So first one I see is deposit. Deposit is adding money to the bank, basically. So adding money. If I go to the bank and make a deposit, I'm adding money to my bank account. Withdrawal, that's the second term I see. Withdraw means taking out money. Taking out money. In other words, you're subtracting it. So an example of this would be, I might want to go to the bank and withdraw or make a withdrawal, meaning I'm going to take out some money. Maybe I want to go to Chick-fil-A and get some food. So I would be subtracting money from my bank account so I could go eat at Chick-fil-A, which is amazing. So again, that would represent negative or subtracting. All right, next term, overdrawn. We don't see this on here, but it's very similar to withdrawal. Overdrawn means, well, draw, similar to that part of withdrawal. So I'm taking out money. Over means, well, you're kind of overdoing it, too much. You're over what you should be doing. So means taking out too much money. Taking out too much money. In other words, taking more than you have in the bank. More than you have. And what happens when you take out more money than you have from the bank? Well, the bank wants their money back, and then they're going to charge you extra because you took their money and you took more than you should have. Okay, last term, balance. Balance is simply how much money you have. Okay, so let's look through this little section from Carter's bank account. On May 31st, he had a balance of $280. This means he had $280. On June 15th, he made a deposit of $40. Deposit means adding money. So essentially, he added $40. You'll notice his balance went up. How much did it go up? It went up $40 from $280 to $320. On June 24th, he made a withdrawal of $490. Withdrawal again means taking out money. So he took $490 out of the bank. But if you remember, he only had $320, meaning he just took too much money, and now you'll notice his balance. How much money does he have? He has negative $170. That means his account is overdrawn. He took out too much. He took more than he had. He only had $320. He took more. So now, not only does he need to give money back to the bank, they're probably going to give him an extra fee or charge since he took too much. So our question is, how much money does Carter owe the bank? Well, his balance is negative $170. So he has a balance of negative 170. So he has less than $0, below $0. And what does he want to do? he wants to get back to $0. Again, he wants to get back to $0. Hopefully, he wants more than $0 because he wants money in the bank so he can, spend and buy food and pay rent and all his bills and all of the other stuff he needs to do. Now, to get back to 0, I need to think, what's the distance of that number from 0? So in other words, we're going to find the absolute value of negative $170. And this will tell us how much money he needs to give back to the bank. Well, how far is negative $170 from 0? It would be 170 away. So, in other words, he owes the bank $170. Notice we're not saying he owes negative 170. Negative $170 is how much his balance is. Owes refers to how much money he needs to give the bank. You can't give someone negative, but you can give them a positive amount of money. So he has to give the bank $170 for his balance to go back to 0. And then hopefully he needs to make more of these deposits so he can have more than $0. Okay, our last example. A dog is sitting on a cliff. Why is a dog sitting on a cliff? I have no idea. Maybe he's contemplating life and all of the exciting things happening. He is 35 feet above sea level. A dolphin is swimming 6 feet below sea level. And an octopus is moving along the seabed 40 feet below sea level. And our question is, which animal is farthest from sea level? Sea level is 0 feet. So in other words, we're saying which animal has the biggest distance from 0. Distance from 0 is absolute value. So let's look at the distance of the dog from the sea level. So distance from 0, I would want to calculate the absolute value of 35 feet. How far is 35 feet away from 0? 35 feet. The dolphin. The dolphin is at negative 6 feet. So I want to calculate the absolute value of negative 6 feet. How far is negative 6 feet away from 0? Well, that would be 6 feet. And then last, the octopus. The octopus is at negative 40 feet. So I want to calculate the absolute value of negative 40 feet. How far is that from 0? That would be 40 feet. Again, distance is always positive. So now I'm going to see which one is the biggest. Well, it would be 40 feet. So who is farthest away from the ocean level or sea level? It would be the octopus at 40 feet away. So that is going to be our answer. The octopus is farthest from sea level. I hope this has helped with absolute value. If it hasn't, there are many more videos out there. I hope you can find what you are looking for. You all have a great day.